Lore Lesson: The Ancients, Part 2. From the field notes of Cassius Kilborn, Syndicate Intelligence. Our expedition's journey carried us to the east out of the highlands of Brightwood into the swamplands of a seemingly endless bog called Weaver's Fenn. We were in search of an aging bridge spoke of by Mr. William Heron, coined the North Vega Bridge. It certainly wasn't difficult to find, however. Wading through miles of crocodile-infested muck to reach it proved quite the daunting challenge. Upon reaching the badly ruined bridge, it was quite apparent those who traveled before us created these elevated roads to safely traverse the untamed wilds. Or perhaps the bridge was constructed to transport something closer to the shore. The adornments of this magnificent bridge led me to believe these passages were constructed by the ancients themselves, or perhaps those that followed them so loyally. A series of missives had been discovered in our travels that began to make more sense of the massive statues we've encountered and just how they got here. Lore page. The road. The rattle of bone, a watchful eye, their humanity removed, their death denied. I see it. I see a giant stone statue being marched slowly but surely down the path. The same beings, those of four, guide us down the long and mystical road. The giant statue is carved in their image. Those who move the statue are trapped in a servitude, unable to deny or disobey, for what has been taken from us cannot be restored, and what has been given to us cannot be returned. I hear them sing songs as they move the massive stone, and the melodies ring in my ears like a bittersweet memory I never had. These findings lead us to believe the ancients openly traveled these lands and had indeed enslaved many upon the island, both the living and the partially dead, forcing their labor to place these effigies in their likeness across the land. But for what purpose? The bridge spanned far and wide across some of the most treacherous terrain in the swamps, but I must say, it might have been safer braving the lowlands under the bridge than trying to progress across the seemingly easy path above. The bridge had worn under the dank conditions in the fen, and several broken sections made crossing it downright dangerous. If that wasn't cause enough for concern, the structure was riddled with more ancient guardians. Although we've become quite adept at eliminating these threats without injury to ourselves, these guardians would just not stay dead. No sooner we would dispatch one before another came back to life. Suffice it to say, we moved across the bridge as quickly as possible, allowing little time to effectively study the structure. This lingering feeling of how these ancient guardians came to be is further explained in this series of notes. This one was partially destroyed by the elements, but a quick dip into some Azoth-infused alcohol brightened the ink just quite effectively. Little trick I learned from Dr. Theo. Lore page. The Flood. Truths drowned, resting under the surface. Hiding away ancient sins, hiding away ancient curses. I see them, the beings with four arms. I feel myself sinking under the water, my ears hearing only bubbling and sloshing. As I hold my breath, my chest tightens as my strength leaves me. I can't sense what, but something is pulling me under the surface, and soon I shall run out of air. As my mind leaves me and my body begins to end its thrashing, I feel the waters surge within me. My lungs begin to fill, but oddly enough, it's not a cold wave entering the core of my body. I feel the water permeating my being, penetrating even to my very bones. I feel as if what was in me is driven out and replaced by the waters. As I break my bondage and rise to the surface, my mind comes back to the world around me. This clearly depicts the turning of a human into one of them, a guardian. But what betrays me is just how one of these beings could explain this experience, write it upon a parchment after it had taken place. The only conclusion is that despite their soulless appearance, even the ancient guardians continue to think, just as the corrupted do upon their transformation. Without question, the mystery of this place seems to deepen the further we travel into the wilds of Aeternum. Then, this. A final parchment we acquired in trade with a fellow traveler. It appears these pieces of Aeternum's lore have become somewhat of a bargaining chip amongst others stranded here. We traded a bushel of hemp and 2 flasks of fish oil for this one. Lore page. The Bay. A guiding light, crashing shores, and sudden landfall. A tall tower, rain of fire, and a siren's call. Like some kind of sorcery or an ill omen, the blue flames of the bay turn red. They have come. They corrupt everything they touch, changing the very essence of the beings of this island. The bay is slowly taken over them, and they empower even those of 4. What few guardians are left are pinned to a small part of the bay, and the red-eyed monsters begin their work on the lighthouse. Those enchanted by the siren song of Aeternum soon find themselves caught in storms, attacked by spires of dark corruption that send their vessels crashing into the shore. They came seeking a paradise, but all they found was darkness. Those of 4 have all but left us to die, but we cannot die. They stripped us even of that. An actual missive from an ancient guardian? If this page speaks the truth we seek, the corrupted somehow managed to overpower the ancients themselves. Those of 4, it reads. The ancients are depicted as having 4 arms. It must be the ancients and their guardians who were overtaken in this bay the lore page speaks to. Its mention of this siren song. Could this explain the strange and harmonious sounds we heard just before our own vessels were shipwrecked? I mean, I do remember some strange enchanting melody just before the crew began to panic. But I figured it was my imagination, or perhaps the lack of nutrition on our long voyage. The ship's wheel isn't working! We have no rudder! The seaman exclaimed shortly before we were shipwrecked. That is all I can recall, however, as my memory of that day is quite clouded. My next memories began when I awoke on that beach. What's more, who is this siren they speak of? We commit to finding as many of these pages as possible. They seem to hold the key to much of the story here. I just hope they don't end up to be folly, the lost pages of an insane traveler's imagination, or worse, a fictional drama written for some stage production. Something, however, tells me we're on the right path. By the sounds of that bell, a well-earned supper awaits, and the expedition has grown quite fond of my adventure stories as we share a meal. Don't worry, though. I will continue to note our findings in the days to come.